Greetings, MechWarriors. This is BlackHawk-SC, and welcome to the second part of my Hunchback IIC guides. In this video, we're going to talk about the base variant, and before we begin, it's going to be a shorter multi-guide because I'm going to save some of the builds for the C variant. The C and the base variant share many of the same builds, with the C being a bit less versatile because of its worse hardpoints. If I talked about all the C builds in this video, there'd be very little content left for that particular segment of the guides, so I hope you'll stick around for the next segment. Among the Hunchback IIC variants, I think the base variant is the second best after the A, but really by a small margin. I think many experienced players will prefer this over the A as well, but my personal opinion is that the A variant, especially some of the LPL builds, are less reliant on the team. The high laser mounts on the A allows it to stay at range, expose a small portion of the mech, and duck back under cover quickly after the shot has been taken. This is especially useful when you get teams that for one reason or another is hanging back and not doing very much. The base variant, while it also has high mounted weapons, requires more face time to deal its damage, doesn't have the same range, or if it uses a Gauss-based build, sacrifices alpha size and DPS. However, because of the incredible DPS of the clan UX, the base variant can be a more effective mech than the A if it gets ignored. This brings us to the first build in this guide, which is the UAC-10 ERML build. Note that this build can be done on the C as well, but we'll talk about it here. As I just alluded to earlier, this build works best when you're being ignored. For the most part, you want to stay at around the 400 meter range and preferably off to the side somewhat so you're not taking most of the enemy's fire. While your assaults or heavies are trading armor with the enemy, you're hopefully poking out with your high mounts and not getting shot back. Or if you feel safe enough, you can supplement the DPS with your ERMLs as well. Try to be unpredictable with your firing angles and don't poke from places where the enemy is paying attention to. The jump jets can really help with getting into those kinds of positions. Also remember that UAC builds really do well with increased face time, but under these three scenarios you need to stop firing and get under cover. First is when both of your UACs jam. The MLs alone don't do enough damage to justify being exposed. Second, you see something like a heavy or assault turning their guns towards you. Tanking damage isn't a medium's primary role, and especially the Hunchback IIC with its poor hitboxes and lack of durability quirks. Third, you start reaching your heat limit. This build only comes with the 10 internal double heat sinks, so even continuously double tapping the UAC-10s can cause you to overheat. When you're at the heat limit, either come back to cool, or single fire the UX with about a 3-second cooldown in between. For a lot of people who are new to UAC-10s, it might be challenging at first to use them properly. The most common issue, I think, is with a rather slow projectile velocity, but I think this is not terribly difficult to overcome. My basic rule is that if you're firing at an easy-to-hit target, like a large and slow mech, you can use the double tap to get as much damage out as you can during that time. If it's a fast-moving target, or if you're not confident about making the shot, use single taps to conserve ammo in case you're missing. The single shots also help you to see where your bullets are going. In general though, try to prioritize larger, slower, and easier to hit targets, and targets that your teammates are already shooting at. Leave the squirrely lights for other mechs to handle.
New target acquired. Target acquired. Target destroyed.
Another consideration for this build is how to use the two medium lasers in the CT. Unfortunately, the MLs and the UX don't sync up very well in terms of how you aim the weapons. You need to lead the UX shots, but you don't need to lead lasers, so it's a problem sometimes to get them to work together. The simple way to think about it is that you should always prioritize aiming the UX, except for when you're trying to hit fast lights. When you have a stationary target, it's pretty easy, and you can go ahead and fire both weapons. On a moving target, it gets a little bit tricky. What I would do is to single or double tap the UX, and because there's about a 1.5 second cooldown for the UX after the double tap, use that time to adjust your aim for the lasers, fire them, then readjust your aim for the UX again. If you have trouble with using lasers and UX together, consider the triple UX5 build that I'll talk about in the second part of this video. However, if you get the hang of it, the lasers do add a good amount of burst damage, so I think they're worth it. Also remember that you should probably only fire the lasers about twice when you're at base heat. Afterwards, just use the UX for maximum sustained DPS. You should not be using the lasers at all if you're near the heat cap, as long as you have ammo left. The modules that I use on this build are Advanced Seismic, Radar Deprivation, UX-10 Cooldown, and ERML range modules. Now let's see this build in action. So in this game we're on Canyon Network. Canyon gets picked a lot these days. People just like Canyon. I don't know, for whatever reason. Probably because it's a fairly balanced map, has good visibility across the map. It gives you a lot of hill peeking opportunities.
Stay with them. Let's all stay together, please. Keep moving forward.
And it's especially a good map for Hunchback IICs because it allows you to use those high mounts effectively. So we're looking to get over at the C3 area because a lot of teams kind of go through Bravo 3 C3 into the little ramp up over that right behind Theta. But we're gonna try to use an angle instead. So we come over here and we notice this locust over here. Now, we don't really want to shoot the locust, right? As I mentioned earlier, we don't want to shoot these squirrely lights. That shouldn't be our priority target. But I'm looking at over the map, and there's really nothing else to shoot at. So I decided to take a few shots over at the locust. Just the acceleration on the locust makes it just really difficult to hit, even with lasers. Alright, now that it went away, here's where you can see the high mounts being very useful, keeping us minimally exposed.
Enemy UAV Delta 2 Charlie 3.
You can see how we're firing the lasers after our double tap, in between our UX shots. On the Black Knight, it was a fairly stationary target, so we're confident in just shooting those our two weapon groups together.
Ninja Wolf Hybrid, you're out of position, bud.
Similarly with this Warhawk, or this Direwolf here. And we're trying to, use this hill as much as possible. If we can get shots, like over this hill, that's going to be ideal, like here on the Stalker. But we're gonna try not trading too much with, things like Stalkers that have high mounts as well. So, if they can shoot back at you, it's probably not worth it. So this is why we kind of went to this corner over here to try to get a different angle. We're trying not to engage 1v1 with that Stalker, even with our high mounts. It's just not going to be that favorable for us. Now we switch back over to this hill here. As you see, when we're getting hot, we're not really using the lasers at all. We're just keeping our shots on our UX only.
Junior.
Again, we have a fairly stationary Hunchback over there.
Echo in the canyon.
So we're just shooting both at the same time. Both lasers and UX, I mean. So here we turn off the
Echo's down. Moving on, Charlie.
turn off our heat vision just to see which component exactly we're shooting. Sometimes it can be difficult to isolate components when your heat vision is on.
Heading to Charlie 4. Really good job, everybody.
Smashed it.
Yeah, we just need to clean up the last two guys.
Tom's the OP, man.
Again, just making sure you fire the lasers in between
And last one.
the UAC shots, and not during when it's moving quickly.
Target destroyed.
Nope.
And that is game. You can see our game actually didn't last very long, but you can check out how much damage we actually did during that time. So, the second build we'll talk about is the triple UAC 5 build. I'll first note that there's an option to add a couple of mLs to the CT, but that will drop your speed down to 76 kph with an XL220 engine. I don't think that's worth it because being able to reposition and get out of bad situations is pretty important on this mech. The mech plays very similarly to the UAC 10 build, except it's far less complex to get right. This build doesn't generate nearly as much heat as the 10s, and without the lasers, this build runs very cool. You also don't have to worry about syncing the lasers and ACs together, so you won't have to adjust your reticle between shots. It's less common for all three UACs to jam together, so you'll have a weapon to fire most of the time. The UAC 5 bullets are also a little bit faster, so it's more accurate. All this sounds good, but the main issue with this build is that it takes far more face time to get that damage out compared with the UAC 10s. If you only have a second or two to shoot at a mech, the UAC 10 and ERML combo will do a lot more damage during that time. This is why, despite that big list of pros, I think the UAC 10 build is more effective overall. The way to play this is pretty much the same as the UAC 10 build, so I won't repeat all the details. Here though, it's even more important to find situations where you're simply supporting and not taking damage. It needs a lot of time to get damage out, so look for big friendly mechs to escort or fire around. One thing I didn't notice with this build initially was that the second UAC on either side torso is lower than the cockpit, although it's not quite at the CT energy hardpoint level. So do keep that in mind when you decide how much to expose during a hill peak. The modules I'd use on this build are Advanced Seismic, Radar Deprivation, and the UAC 5 cooldown and range modules. The range module can be skipped if you don't have the C-bills, since it's best to engage around 500 meters or under. And now we can get into a demo of this build. So here we're on Alpine Peaks.
Reactor online.
Not actually the
Sensors
most ideal
online.
map for this build
Weapons
because
online.
it's often a little bit longer range than
All
we want it
systems
to be.
nominal.
Sometimes the battle like stays at past 600 meters for a while. Whereas we kind of want to engage at under like 500 or so. The other thing is that the DPS advantage over other mechs on a cold map isn't as pronounced. So you'll have maybe better... you have a stronger advantage against other mechs, for example, if you're on Tourmaline or Caustic or things like that. But the DPS is still pretty good, and you're still going to try to get into these situations where you can just have a lot of face time and try to not get shot.
Acquired.
Luckily, the team is moving towards us in this match,
Target
so if they're
acquired.
moving away, then we might have a little bit of trouble. So we're moving up this hill to try to use our high mounts as much as possible, and hopefully they're still at that J8 area,
Target
J9,
acquired.
so we can shoot over the hills and maybe get some damage on them.
Target acquired.
The Direwolf is about 800 meters away, and you can
Target
see
acquired.
at 800 meters, although our range seems to indicate that we are going to do some damage, that bullet drop
Target
actually hurts
acquired.
hurts those range shots quite a bit. So again, try to engage
New
at
target
lower
acquired.
at that 500
Target
500
acquired.
meter range if possible. So the enemy has gotten quite close, luckily for us. And we're going to come down and support all these mechs that are here.
Target destroyed. New target acquired.
We have a bunch of mechs here. I
New
think
target
it's
acquired.
Warhawk, I guess. Yeah, it's Warhawk,
New target acquired.
who's drawing a lot of fire. And we have an archer and several other mechs here that's drawing fire from us, so we're not getting shot as much. We're taking a little bit of damage, but not that much. And you can see where we had a shot on the Irby, but we didn't take that. As I mentioned, focus on bigger targets, slower targets.
Target destroyed. New target acquired.
We're also single firing some of those shots because it was difficult to see what part of the mecha was hitting. The smoke was covering the front of those mechs, so I wanted to shoot CT as much as possible, and I just didn't want to shoot legs, put damage on these mechs' legs. I was conserving my ammo for that reason.
New target acquired. Right arm destroyed. New target acquired.
So on that first shot on the M Jaguar, really I should have just single tapped, because I think I didn't get the component that I wanted to hit. So even though I think I made contact, it hit the arm, which is not ideal.
New target acquired.
Again, we can shoot that Irby, but don't want to. I'd rather not.
Warning, incoming missile. New target acquired.
So we've been, you can see that we've been escorting this Warhawk for most of the time that we've been firing, and the Warhawk's, obviously drawing a lot of fire for good reason.
New target
Again, not shooting the Irby so much and not shooting that Jenner.
New target acquired.
I'd rather get away from lights that are shooting me than shoot at them and potentially wasting ammo. You are kind of ammo limited in this build, so just do be careful with your shots.
You guys actually need to turn around and fight the guys behind you.
UAV activated.
Didn't realize the direwolf was going to be there, but a friendly Nova kind of tanked for me, which is kind of strange.
Target destroyed. New target acquired. Ultra autocannon ammo at 25%.
I tried to back up for him, but I think I might have blocked him. But
New
it
target
happens.
acquired. Target destroyed. New target acquired.
Target spotted.
Target destroyed. New target acquired.
So again, making sure we choose our targets correctly.
Target destroyed.
Prioritizing that Shadowhawk over the Urban Mech. And we nearly run out of ammo here too. So we're going to wrap things up by mentioning a couple of other builds that can be run on the base variant that I'll go into more detail about in the C variant guide. This first one is kind of a close-range skirmisher using the UAC-20 and MPLs. I personally am not a huge fan of the UAC-20s, but we'll see in the next video how a C-specific version of this build can be made to work. The second is a Gauss ER Large Laser Sniper. This same exact build can be done on the C, so stay tuned for more info. Well, if you enjoyed this video and learned something from it, please give it a like. Make sure to subscribe to keep up to date on new MechWarrior guides and gameplay videos, including more from this series. See you soon, MechWarriors.